Hiya! Info Ninja. Welcome back to the dojo, everybody. You know, this won't come as anything new to you, but evil is after our kids. Look at the stuff that happens at the border. It sickens me that we're like the number one country, the United States of America, for sex trafficking kids from foreign countries through our southern border. We take in the most kids anywhere in the world. We could be taking in these kids and feeding them and helping them. Instead, we're raping them. Instead, we're killing them. There are some sick bastards bringing the kids in and some sick bastards paying for the kids. But this isn't a pedophile episode. That's just another thing, another evil we have to worry about with our kids. You know, it kind of makes you miss the good old kidnapping days. Back when the worst thing you had to worry about was somebody was going to offer your kid candy and they were going to hop into a van. Kidnapping. I wish that's all we had to worry about today. Now there's rape, now there's porn in schools, and now, thanks to the Biden administration, evil has kind of run rampant. It's gotten much more brazen, and it's put itself out in public. But good has countered. We now have Donald Trump coming in as president, and some of the last remnants of that evil still remain. A lot of it's already scattered. As soon as Donald Trump won, it went, whoa, we're out of here. And a lot of these ideas and the people that supported these ideas just have kind of gone away. And you know what? That's okay. There may be some accountability later, but right now it's okay that you're just gone.
Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out.
Why? Do people get hit in the ass with it a lot?
It's just an expression.
Oh, I'm kind of worried about this door now, though.
Just leave.
We're going to talk about a Supreme Court case that just started that is truly good versus evil. And do not forget, that's really what this comes down to, folks, is good versus evil. They like to say it's about this idea and this gender and that. No. It's good versus evil. Get rid of all the crap. Don't believe the devil's lies. The evil is real, good is real, and they are battling it out. We need to pray. Especially now, because evil is after our kids.
According to census data, roughly 3,000 teens ages 13 to 17 identify as transgender in Tennessee alone. And this case could have implications beyond Tennessee, with 26 other states passing similar restrictions on gender-affirming care for minors. So let's talk more about this with GLAAD President and CEO Sarah Kate Ellis here with me in studio. Sarah Kate, thank you for coming in. What's your response to what we heard in that piece? The critics saying, listen, we ban kids from doing lots of things. They're not allowed to smoke cigarettes. They're not allowed to drink alcohol. They're not allowed to do these things that potentially make decisions that are life-altering for them. What's your response to that? That kids are just too young to make these decisions and could potentially be doing something that will impact them for years to come?
Yeah, so I would just start at the core of that argument, which is those are bad things. Smoking cigarettes, they're proven. Tattoos, tattoos aren't bad, but they're things that are different and not necessary. This is life-saving medicine. We're talking about not treating people for diabetes if they're youth. What are we talking about? We can't compare that to smoking cigarettes. Your life-affirming and life-saving medical care. I think they're two different things, and we're arguing something, I think protecting kids absolutely is in all of our best interest, and this does protect them. This gives them the life that they need and that they want.
I'm referring to U.S. versus Skemetti. This is the Tennessee ban on transgender. They call it affirming care, which is complete BS. It has now made its way all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And what happens here will affect the entire country, especially states like California, where they can actually take your kids. Even if your kids aren't from California, they can take your kids and quote unquote transition them or help them transition, which, by the way, folks, you can't transition. We all know this, okay? I just want to put it out there. It's impossible. You can cut off your penis and you can slice off your breast, and then you're just a dude without a dick and a chick without tits.
There are no chicks with dicks, Johnny. Only guys with tits.
Good versus evil. Big Supreme Court case here. The Satanists are actively following this one, guaranteed, because it kind of combines their two favorite things. You see, God does good things and the devil does bad things, and the devil tries to imitate God to mock him, which is not a good idea.
Big mistake.
You're damn right. It's a big mistake, Arnold. It's always a big mistake to mock God. God creates life, and the devil and evil try to take it. That's why they love abortion so much. And this isn't an abortion episode. I'm not going to go off on that, but that's why they love sponsoring an abortion. It combines two of the things that they hate the most, which is life and a baby. Those two things, if they can destroy those two things, that's like 10 million points for Satanists. I think it gets them some kind of a promotion. That's why they're willing to pay for women's abortions. It's sick. It's sadistic. And we have a chance to stop it with this Supreme Court case. So again, U.S. versus Skemetti. There has been two huge whoppers. There's been lots of whoppers that have come out of this so far, but two huge lies. And some of these coming from like the Supreme Court justices that are the radical liberals, and most of it coming from these attorneys, the U.S. Department of Justice and the ACLU attorney. It's disgusting the way they're talking about how hormone blockers, and this is about cross-sex hormones and hormone blockers for kids, how hormone blockers don't do any damage is one of the lies. And the other lie is that hormone blockers and these cross-sex hormones have absolutely no negative effect, or actually have a positive. They decrease suicidal risk. These are two provable lies that actually hurt children. And I thought we were past it. Remember, folks, they banned all this in the UK because of this. They went and they reviewed the studies. They looked at all these studies, and it all came from 2 Dutch studies, but really there was like over 20 studies, and they looked at it and they went, this is nuts. We're hurting kids. The outcome isn't there. This is just a moneymaker, a $6 billion projected by 2030, a $6 billion business changing our kids' genders, quote unquote, changing their genders. They banned it in the UK already. And now this is our chance to do it in the United States with this case. But listen to this attorney argue about how puberty blockers actually decrease the risk of suicide, which by the way, we know that is provably untrue. And the FDA, the Federal Food and Drug Administration, knows it as well. How do they know it? Because they did a study on it. And I pulled this up just especially for your folks here. This is from the Daily Signal. Headline, bombshell FDA email turns transgender healthcare narrative on its head. Shannon Sullivan, clinical team leader at the FDA's Division of General Endocrinology, noted that the agency's Division of Metabolism and Endocrinology, I'm sorry folks, I'm not trying to butcher this, products performed a safety review of the GnRH against classed in pediatric patients in 2016/2017. Anyway, long story short, it says their review focused on suicidal ideation, depression, seizures, and bone health. Although most of the minors in the study suffered from central precocious puberty, that's when puberty comes on way too early, a handful of the kids in the study were given off-label drug use for transgender. They said they found no effect with these drugs on bones. Okay, they had no increased fractured risk. There was no increased risk of seizure, but there was an increased risk of depression and kids wanting to commit suicide. The FDA knows about this study and they still approved these drugs. They're sick, folks. This is evil. It's a cult. And thank God for Sam Alito, Justice Sam Alito. He called them out.
Medical questions that seem to me to be hotly disputed, and that's a bit distressing. One of them has to do with the risk of suicide. Do you maintain that the procedures and medications in question reduce the risk of suicide?
I do, Justice Alito, maintain that the medications in question reduce the risk of depression, anxiety, and suicidality, which are all indicators of potential suicide.
And do you think that's clearly established? Do you think there's reason for disagreement about that?
I do think it is clearly established in the science and in the record. I think, as with all underlying questions of looking at evidence, there can be disagreement. I don't dispute that. But here, and sort of going back to questions about the Cass review, for example, the Cass review only looked at studies up until 2022.
Well, I don't regard the Cass review as necessarily as the Bible or as something that's true in every respect. But on page 195 of the Cass report, it says, there is no evidence that gender affirmative treatments reduce suicide.
It actually makes kids want to kill themselves more, folks, to be on these drugs. It's a $6 billion moneymaker for them. And just in case you didn't know, here's another actual medical fact for you. 95% of the kids that start out on puberty blockers, 95% of those kids end up on cross-sex hormones.
A clinical psychologist who has conducted sex research for some 30 years hammered studies used to justify gender therapy. James Cantor of Toronto said he read the approximately 20 major reviews of studies on gender dysphoria.
Every one of the systematic reviews came up with exactly the same conclusion. We have an enormous area of unknowns, and the risks are well documented, up through and including the sterility of the children, but without any evidence of benefits that say that the risks are worth it.
He was highly critical of several of the gender studies, calling them sloppy. One of the reasons? Politics has intruded.
Now that the politics have become so extreme on both sides, it's very, very difficult to get any kind of an objective measure.
Plus, Cantor challenged the notion that gender transition reduces suicide. He said the rate is about the same afterward as it is before.
Do you think kids should be allowed to get tattoos? That's what the Justice Alito should have said. Can a kid get a name tattooed on their forehead at age 5? They really like Optimus Prime from the Transformers, so they can get that name tattooed on their forehead at age 5. No, you think that's a bad idea. Should we let 7-year-olds get married if they decide they're in love with another 7-year-old? Should we allow that? No, of course not. That's the same reason that we can't provide enough counseling or put enough warning labels on these kind of things to allow a kid to make a decision to take cross-sex hormones or puberty blockers. They can't be informed enough. They're not adults. So I say it all the time, we need to pray, but actually do it, folks. Say, God, please bless this Supreme Court case with a good outcome. May your will be done. Because this is good versus evil with our kids on the line. Hi-yow! Info Ninja.